Hello, today we're talking about the social media policy that was recently approved by our school board. We will detail the purpose of the policy, definitions, any prohibited items, some real-world examples, and other necessary components of this policy. Social media has changed the way we communicate and altered our society as a whole. If I asked the room to raise your hand if you have a social media account, the majority would have their hands raised. There are great aspects of social media, such as staying in touch with family and friends, but there are negative aspects as well. The purpose of this policy is to provide guidance for employees to follow when using social media and the internet in general. First, we need to discuss the definitions addressed in the policy. Material refers to communication or information that includes text, images, art, video, or audio. Material could be your recorded voice, a picture you posted, or a video you took. Publicly accessible refers to situations in which material can or may be viewed by district students, parents, or the public. Essentially, if anyone other than yourself can view the material, it's considered publicly accessible. To publish means to post, create, make available, or cause to be made available material. The last definition is social media. Social media is any website on which a user may publish material. Below we have the largest and most well-known social media accounts. But it's important to note that social media sites such as blogs or gaming websites would also be included under this definition. The next slide states the prohibited material under the new school board policy. Please take a second and read through the bullet points. Note the strong language included in this list: obscene, incites violence, unlawful, or unethical. This policy was written to guide employees and eliminate extreme behaviors on social media accounts. The next slide includes 2 examples pulled from headlines across the U.S. These teachers have either lost their positions or received serious discipline for their actions on social media accounts. Let's take a second and read these 2 headlines. I feel it's pretty obvious why these 2 teachers were disciplined over their social media actions. Nudity and references to your students, especially negative references, should never be published on your publicly accessible social media sites. This slide includes several more examples of prohibited social media material taken from real-life teachers in America. Please take a second to review the postings. Once again, the examples are quite obvious. Smoking marijuana and inciting violence are both prohibited social media behavior. Next, we will address personal communications that occur through social media. This policy discourages employees from inviting current or future students to be friends. If you do decide to friend request students or future students, it's important to note that you do so at your own risk. Furthering our conversation about personal communications, I want to share a few tips from Greg Butler, Executive Director of the Union. He wrote these as guidelines for OCSD employees, and with his permission, I would like to share them with you. Please take a moment to read over the bullet points. Notice that he stresses that privacy settings are not always as private as we may believe. Also, he makes a great point that once something has been published online, social media sites retain a record of the material. This policy also discusses personal business communications. Employees are permitted to have personal or business web pages hosted on non-district servers. These web pages must comply with this policy if the sites are publicly accessible. Remember, no student information should be published on your personal business websites. Moving on to private communications. Material that is published on a private server that is not publicly accessible is not covered under this policy. This next slide refers to all of the other board policies, federal and state rules, rights, and laws that we as employees are responsible for complying with. Student information is protected and should never be published on social media sites. And it's important to note that this policy cannot interfere with an employee's First Amendment rights to free speech. Employees who wish to communicate information about a social media issue are covered under the school board's whistleblower protection policy and should follow the guidelines of that policy when reporting any information. Any employee who violates this policy is subject to disciplinary action up to and including termination from employment. All employees will receive due process. To review School Board Policy 06-29, Employees' Use of Social Media, go to the Board Docs link at the bottom of the OCSD homepage. Click Enter the Public Site and then choose Policies from the tabs across the top of the page. For questions about the social media policy, please email the personnel inbox at personnel@okaloosaschools.com or contact us in HR. Thanks and have a great day.